It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Welcome, everyone, to the Divas That Care Network. And today, I hope you are ready to hear how something that you've probably done several times in your life can have a powerful impact on your emotion and your physical state. So, stay tuned for this awesome episode of Words That Work. I'm your host, Naomi McDonald, and joining me today is Mary Stearns, and we will be discussing the art of chanting. Yes, I said chanting. So Mary, welcome.
Thank you, Naomi, and thank you for giving us opportunity to discuss chanting, wonderful chanting.
It is, and it's just wonderful. But I'm just so in anticipation to hear how a licensed clinical social worker with your professional expertise and counseling practice, plus teaching emotional freedom techniques, you're a certified trauma-informed yoga therapist with 1,200 hours of teaching yoga. And so let us hear how all of that blends into the art of chanting.
Well, that's a big question. I'll start with the sentence. So when my husband and I met many years ago, I was really steeped in Western psychological healing and practices, somehow sensing that that's the way to heal and mature. And my husband came from a real strong Eastern tradition with contemplative practices and meditation and philosophy. And as if that was the way to heal, and we came together and realized that both of us were right and both of us were incomplete, and that for us it was really the combination of turning to Western practices when they are helpful, and there are times that there are, and also relying on Eastern practices and their long lineage to help us integrate body-mind wellness practices. And so thus you see in my biography the blending of Western psychological approaches and my professional work, and as the years went on, increasingly integrating Eastern practices such as yoga and such as mindfulness. And so it's been an extraordinary journey, and so now putting together this chanting community, which we'll talk about in a little bit, has been, another step in that journey.
And that is just awesome, because to go from a primarily Western approach to things, and I think many people in our society are starting to blend different approaches because they're working. And I love this. You're actually an author too. Your books, Healing Anxiety, Depression, and Unworthiness, 78 brain chanting, mindfulness, yoga practices, and others. And so it's beautiful to see the blending of what is offered in our world. I think that's just awesome. But anyway, let's go to chanting. What is it and how does it work?
Well, chanting, again, it's one of these practices that has a thousands-a-year-old plus lineage, and it comes from perhaps early on from Eastern traditions, but has really been integrated by Christianity. Just a sentence here has been integrated into Christianity through the work of Father Thomas Keating and Basil Pentington, who brought the contemplative or meditative practices of the Desert Fathers back in the 500 AD back into Christian practices. And so that happened in the second half of last century. And so it's wonderful that even at least in the United States, that these practices have become more integrated into the religion that's prevalent here in this country. But chanting itself is a very, very simple practice. And it can be done as mantra recitation, which is where you just simply say a word or two or three, some word that really touches you. You just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. And when your mind wanders, as soon as you realize it, you go back to your word. And then you just softly, maybe in connection with the breath, you repeat the word or the phrase. And then when your mind wanders, you come back to the word. So it can be something that simple. I could talk an hour on the power of that and personal examples of doing that. But let's move it more to chanting with rhythm and music, which maybe is how we more associate chanting. That it's usually a repetitive, simple tune and a few repetitive words that you sing over and over and over and over. And in our chanting community, we chant for 45 minutes. We start with an 11-minute chant, and then we take a couple-minute break. Not everyone does the 11-minute chant. Some people come in for the second chant, which is a 30-minute chant. And so you can chant from 11 minutes, as I said in the first chant, into a longer chant. But and when we do this, we are simply singing along with music. We share music through the computer. We do our chanting community is online, as so many chanting communities are now since the pandemic. But we're online, and we share the chant through we share the computer sound, and so we're all listening to the same song, and we're chanting together, even though we're in our separate homes, in our separate time zones, doing the chant together. But the benefits are they're so interesting. I'll just start with that. And both some personal experiences with our community, not necessarily my personal experiences, but including mine, and even what some of the research shows. First, an interesting perspective, Stephen Porges has been instrumental in these last 20, 25 years in bringing a theory called polyvagal nerve theory into contemporary psychology. And very simply, polyvagal theory is where we begin to resonate with one another, and we go into sync with one another. And in doing that, our nervous system really, really calms. And one of the ways that we can do that is through a shared experience of chanting. And in one of his books, he talked about his research with some Polynesian island communities where they did chanting in community and found they didn't have post-traumatic stress disorder because they came together in chanting and because they felt that incredible community support, and because through the chanting their nervous systems were regulated, and because during the chanting there can be emotional catharsis, and so whatever current stressors had occurred were then released through the catharsis of the chanting. I think that's astounding. That's anecdotal research, but it's still so interesting that these groups don't have post-traumatic stress disorder, and there's stress in all of our lives and difficulties in all of our lives. So we can say that the benefits can start from from protecting us from post-traumatic stress disorder, which is huge. But then the benefits, it's huge, isn't it? Yeah.
It is huge, but protecting us from it, but also if we recognize that something that occurs for us and the stressors that come up or the feelings that come up, if we had a chance that we could incorporate in our lives and bring that in, it could also be a way to maybe halt it or control something that's already there.
What some of the research says, yes, it has that protective benefit, but the research shows that there can be emotional catharsis with chanting, where there's just because you're chanting, your nervous system is protected, and again, most of my experience in recent years is with our chanting community that we do on Zoom online, and we tell people when they start, emotional catharsis can be a part of this experience, and if that occurs to you and if you feel safe, it's okay. And most of us have experienced emotional catharsis during the chanting. Not every time, not everybody, not in all the same ways, but there's some release as the nervous system feels safe, and there's this protection of the rhythm of the chanting that release occurs. So yes, that chanting, I'm talking community now, can give us that protection from post-traumatic stress, but then also the alleviation, the relief from the stressors of our lives. So, but chanting has so many other benefits. It helps us focus and concentrate, because when you chant, you're focusing on the words, the mantra, the music, and like any other contemplative practice, before long, your mind is drifted off, and then as soon as you recognize it, you come back. And so, in that process of doing that over and over, the mind learns to recognize when it wanders, and you train it to come back. And so one of the well-documented research findings of chanting is increased focus and concentration and increased stress reduction and increased self-reflection. So the benefits really, they accrue over time, and they are they're impressive to me. I'm getting older. I want to protect my mind, right? I want to be able to focus and concentrate. I want to keep my stress response low. I want to keep my organs functioning well and my blood pressure regulated. And so why not do something that gives those protective measures at the same time that it connects us with other people and it connects us with something greater than ourselves? So my hand is up in the air. I'm a promoter of chanting.
I absolutely love this, and something that just came across in my brain that I hadn't really thought about before, because my blog talk channel that I do on Divas That Care revolve a lot around pets. And our pets live in our houses with us, and we're sharing our energy with them. And I'm just now realizing that through my own little chanting practice, I can see my animals just kind of melt into the energy that I'm creating in our space.
Right. Oh, that's our experience. That's our experience also. We have with a cat and a dog. But the cat's still sleeping at that time of day. But the dog comes into the room that we chant in, and he's really quiet. He's not seeking attention. He just rests there quietly and seems. So yeah, I would say he gets entranced also by a chanting experience.
Yes, and I haven't thought about that because I am an animal communicator. I do have, a wide area of clients, and quite often it's how do I calm my pet? What do I do? And there are different modalities and things, but I love the idea because then you're chanting together and you're doing it so you're benefiting yourself and putting yourself in a more relaxed, connected state along with what you were describing with your dog. That's lovely.
Right. Yes.
That's lovely. Okay, so
and beneficial, lovely and beneficial, right? That's I like the combo of lovely and beneficial, because the older I get, the more like I want to use my time wisely, and I want to engage in practices that I enjoy. I need to enjoy the practice, so I'll return to it every day, but I also need to benefit from it so that I'm motivated to continue with it. I don't want to squander my years, and I want to be as connected to a higher consciousness as I can, and connected to my own body, and connected to others who are like-minded individuals, which is why we have this chanting community, as I can, so I'm not squandering my days.
That's awesome. That is just lovely, because many of us are searching for something that we can turn to do exactly what you're describing in the catharsis, in relaxing, in moving things. And so I guess it's my understanding, this is a question. So chanting is a mantra of some kind that we repeat over and over with feeling?
Right. With feeling, with intentionality. I read some really interesting research just the other day that was looking at what has happened with chanting communities, which I really want to stress in our time together, and how we do that, because chanting communities online really formed over the pandemic, which is how ours formed. But what they found was that the sense of connection with others is very, very powerful. I really love. We chant on Zoom, so there's no cost. I mean, my husband and I have a subscription to Zoom, but there's no cost for it. But there is commitment. We are a committed group of chanters. Every 3 months we raise our hands and we say, I dedicate myself to showing up at least 5 days a week to chant, because we want to support each other, and we want to show up for chanting for our well-being, but also for the well-being of others who are dedicated to a similar practice. And so to strengthen our chanting experience in a community, we have found that if we have a quote by a spiritual teacher at the end of the chant each day, that we have food for thought, or we have practical guidance or spiritual inspiration, or guiding light along the way, however you want to call it. But we have found with our group that if we end the chant, we rotate, taking turns. We sign up at the end of the week who wants to read the chant who wants to read the quote on what day. We sign up, so the community is participating. They're taking turns reading the teaching, and we have found that adding a spiritual teacher to end the chant with has been a really important component. And for your listeners, whatever your religious tradition is or is not, or whatever your philosophical orientation is, you can find teachers who you resonate with. Because we're a real diverse chant group, so we have Christians and Buddhists and spiritual non-religious and Jewish and atheist in the group, and so we're real respectful of that, and we look for teachers who share what we call like universal truths or practical guidance that's applicable to us all, irregardless of our orientation. But then we end the day with some words to guide us through the day. And so it's been really, really interesting, because on Sundays we share. Sunday is our day where we all get to take like 3 minutes. We stay on the line. Those who want to share can share, and we talk about our experience with the chanting, our experience with the teaching, and steps on our own journey. And so the combination of daily chanting, committed daily chanting. Remember, we raise our hands up every 3 months. Yes, I sign on for 3 more months of chanting. And it's been just extraordinary. This was an outcome and not intentional in the beginning, but the outcome is now at this point that we have something that your listeners can have too, and that is we have a practice, chanting, that's very enjoyable and so beneficial. And we have a community of like-minded people who are willing to show up most days of the week. And we have teachers. And this was not intentional, but what we have found is now we are doing what most of the major religions have done for thousands of years, which is you have a community, right? You have practices and you have teachers. Our difference is we're not aligned with any religion. We practice diversity and tolerance. But the combination of those three has just been an exceptional experience for those of us in the chant community. And if we can do it, your listeners can too, right? It doesn't take money. It takes time. Someone has to go to YouTube and figure out what chants do you want. And how do you start? You say to your friend, hey, I listened to this podcast. They talked about chanting. Do you want to try it out with me? You want to set a time, preferably in the morning, and let's just get together and chant for 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Pick a chant that appeals to your religion, spiritual approach, whatever. How do we find our chants? YouTube. Go to YouTube. Find a chant that you like. Try it out with a friend or two. That's all that has to be done. And then if you like it, that's how we started. I was with 2 other people, and I had an assignment, actually. I had to do chanting as part of a training program that I was in. But someone contacted me and said, Mary, I don't think I can do this by myself. Will you do it with me? And I said, yes. And now, fast forward 4 years, I know that I would not, I can't say that for sure, but I think the likelihood that I would sit down on my chair and chant for 45 minutes a day, the likelihood that I would do that on my own isn't very high. But I sign on, the community's there, they're dedicated, and you bet my butt's on my chair and I chant too. And so it's so beneficial to have other people that you make a commitment to. So you can take a friend, you can find a family member, somebody, and you just make a commitment. And you agree on a certain time, and you start out with maybe 10, 15 minutes, not more than that, and try it out for yourself, right? You have nothing to lose and so much possibility to gain.
It is. There's a wonderful possibility to gain. And so you mentioned YouTube. And so if you're a listener and you're thinking, okay, what is this? What words do I repeat? And sometimes I like to just put on YouTube chants, and then something will pop up that I start repeating, and I'm flowing with the YouTube, and then the next thing I know, I might have to sit and cry, or I can feel it just release, and that particular chant may not have the same reaction the next time because I need different things at different times. But something else that I would like to mention is a chant is something that we repeat with feelings. And I was discussing chanting with a client, one of my, spiritual students, and we were talking about the feeling and the repeating, and she said, oh my goodness, she had gone through a divorce, was feeling very low, very unhappy, very wounded, had had a surgery and was in a lot of pain, and said to herself over and over again, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. And it just was emotionally so much for her. I don't want to be here. And so her discomfort, her illness, no matter what doctor she went to, no matter where she went, she just felt worse and worse and worse. And no one was helping her because her inside mantra was, I don't want to be here.
Right.
And so it was so interesting, the switch in her, just in thank you, body. Thank you. Thank you for this experience. And so we worked with the words, and it took a little bit to be able to put the feeling behind that creation of it.
Right.
So I mention this because I think we've all been in a situation when our life was maybe at a low point. And the words and the things that we say to ourselves are so important. But how beautiful would it be to find, like you said, like-minded people to come in, and you can, because anytime you're in a community, that feeling of love and caring and doing something for a positive outcome just has beautiful effects.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's been, and what we do, and not that there's any one way to do it. I just followed along with the recommendation of a training program that I was in, and what we do is we do our first chant, our 11-minute chant. We do that same chant over and over. We've done that chant for 4 years. That same 11-minute chant in the morning. And then the second chant that we do for 30 minutes, we switch it every 40 days. And so not that your listeners need to do that, but our experience has been if we stay with the chant for a while, even if we don't put, like people say, well, I didn't like it when we started, but now I just connect to something deep inside and I feel a calm that I really can't describe. When they started out not really connecting to the chant, and so it's interesting to kind of select a chant for the day or words for the day that really fit the tone for the day and the immediate need of the day. And there's a whole nother track where you stay with something over a period of time. And I think both are really, really valuable.
Yes, both are.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely valuable and important. And, Mary, this has been fabulous and wonderful information. And so if someone would like to contact you, how would they go about that?
So they could email me if they just want information on how to put together a chant group. They could email, and you've got my email, right, to share it with them. Do you want me to say it online?
I do.
My email is, you want me to say it?
Go ahead. Sure.
Mary, N as in November, S as in Sam. It's Mary, NS, at personaltransformation.com.
Okay, wonderful. And that information will also be on my website at the Divas That Care Network under your episode when it comes out. And I'm so excited about this because I think it has so much benefit for everyone. And so, listeners, if this is something important or feels good to you, certainly let's chant together. And so thank you for being here. And thank you, Divas That Care Network, for offering a platform that is so beneficial for women, teaching women, and we can't forget the men too. But for now, thank you so much for being here, and bye-bye until next time.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.